Veronica presents Part 2 of the AI Repertory Theater's production of Loreen on the Lam by Marie Elena Zuniga. After stealing Josh Montgomery's tour bus so she could get home to her dying mother, Loreen picked up Tilly, a runaway wife. When last we saw them, a cop car had pulled over in front of them. But first, let's return to events atop Big Gap Bluff.
Chapter 4.
Fall 1986, Red Boiling Springs. The leaves rustled at Mac Johnson's feet as he climbed the trail to the top of Big Gap Bluff. The sun was sinking fast. He filled his lungs with brisk, clean air as he wound through thick woods. He had to make sure it was still there. All of it. He had a ways to go yet. Maybe he wasn't as young as he once was, but he was still full of spit and vinegar, or at least spit, as his unofficial daughter-in-law Gertrude said of him. When his fool of a son Nathan had gotten her with child and then took off, Mac decided to do his Christian duty and the right thing and take care of them both. He didn't care what the local folk thought about him being a single man and having them move in. He had disowned his shiftless son years ago. Gertrude and Loreen were his family now, and he loved them both, especially Loreen. She was the spitting image of his wife, rest her soul, with soft blue eyes and hair the color of wheat. Loreen sat with him on the porch, listening to his stories with that crooked smile. He wanted to make sure that child was always taken care of. Always. She was kin. Even more important, he wanted her to do the right thing, lead a good Christian life. Deep in thought, Mac jolted when he heard a noise behind him. He stopped. Silence. He continued walking when the sound of breaking twigs cut through the air.
"All right. You can come out from there. I have my gun with me."
A figure emerged from the shadows of the trees. Mac pointed his gun and kept it steady when he saw who it was.
"You."
The figure stood there, staring at him, wordless.
"I told you to get and stay away. Nothing here for you. Nothing. You're barking up the wrong tree."
"Don't think so. I told you what will happen if you don't show me where it is."
"Ain't nothing for you here. Nothing. I've been telling you that. Now leave me be."
Person seemed to be debating, then turned around and walked away. Mac took a deep breath, realizing what a close call this had been. He had to be more careful and decided he needed to make some plans. He walked down the steep hill, still clutching the gun and cursing his bad luck in being followed. It wouldn't happen again. He'd kill first.
Chapter 5. In the glove compartment, which Loreen somehow managed to find, were papers. She looked through them as fast as she could, while the police officer sat in his car, the blue light flashing. Permit. Insurance. It was all there. Now all she had to do was tell a story of some kind. But what?
"God, I hope it's not my husband,"
Tilly moaned.
"I bet he sent them to come get me." "Oh, hush up,"
Loreen said. She was tired, cranky, and was probably about to go back to prison. But she had an idea.
"Tilly,"
She used her informal name because she needed something and fast.
"you sit up here in the driver's seat. I want you to tell the officer that everyone, including Josh Montgomery, is asleep in the back of the bus. That you're one of his groupies."
Tilly bristled, her face showing fake indignation.
"As I was saying, tell him you came up here to get a smoke. Tell him everyone was tired, including the driver, and needed some rest. Be smart about this, girl, and don't mess it up."
Tilly seemed puzzled, then gave Loreen a smug smile.
"I knew something wasn't right about you. Okay, I'll do this. But you have to tell me what's going on and keep me on this bus as far as you go. I have the second sight, or so my mama said, and I got a weird feeling about you.
Mid-sentence, the officer was pounding at the side door. Loreen ran to the back of the bus, hoping she hadn't been spotted. She couldn't take a chance that the police were hunting her and might recognize her mug. From her hiding place behind the divider space, Loreen couldn't hear much, but Tilly seemed to be doing a good job. Probably leaning over the policeman, showing him her wares or batting those eyelashes that looked like Tammy Faye what's-her-names. After a few minutes, she heard the officer say something, the car door slam, and the car drive off. Tilly sat on the edge of the driver's seat, smiling as if pleased with herself.
I did real good, just like you told me. He said he didn't want to wake up a famous star like Montgomery, but thought it was odd his bus was parked on the shoulder of the road and just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Thank God he wasn't sent by my asshole of a husband. He did ask about my bruise, though. I told him I bumped into the bathroom door of the bus. That stupid local yokel cop believed me. Men! They're all stupid as far as I'm concerned.
It was a close call, to be sure. The police in these parts probably hadn't gotten wind of the bus theft yet. Still, the visit by the law was enough to make Loreen decide she needed to drive all night long. That way, no one would suspect anything. During the day, she'd hide the bus in places off the beaten path so no one could see it. What to do with Tilly was another matter. She owed her.
Okay, now tell me what's up with you.
Tilly said, lighting another cigarette.
Like I said, I have ESPN or whatever they call it, and I knew right away you wasn't right somehow.
Loreen shooed Tilly to the side bench and settled herself into the driver's seat.
I'll tell you in the morning. Right now we have to keep driving until day's light. In the meantime, why don't you go back there and see if this danged bus has any kind of kitchen with coffee or food?
Tilly crushed the cigarette on the floor with one of her flip-flops and let out an exhausted sigh with the last puff of smoke.
Lordy, I am hungry. Let me see what I can find us.
She returned a half-hour later, just as Loreen had crossed the Louisiana border. Something smelled good. Hey, maybe Tilly was worth keeping just for the cooking part. Whatever she rustled up was making her stomach growl.
You would not believe what's on this bus. There's a kitchen back there bigger in my house. I made us some cheeseburgers and hot coffee.
Loreen drove one-handed with the burger in the other, while Tilly started sharing her life story. It wasn't one Loreen wanted to hear, but she was a captive audience, so to speak. Seems the woman had been trying to drum up courage all her life to leave her SOB of a husband police chief. That day came when she learned he had been having a fling with the secretary at the courthouse, and the two were embezzling money from the highway department. She finally had leverage, but when she confronted him, he called her a variety of names, asking her who would believe a two-bit bimbo like her as opposed to him, a respected police officer, then walloped her. That's when she went running out the door and into the road. Through a stuffed mouth of burger, she asked,
You ever want to run away like that? Just get away from it all?
If she only knew, Loreen thought, focusing on the shadowy road ahead.
I figure most of us do. What's that t-shirt saying I once saw? Life's a beach. Guess it is for most of us, but now that I done run off, what do I do?
She asked, mostly to herself.
I ain't got no money, no kin to turn to. Nobody but you.
Loreen didn't need any self-adopted sister. But still, a tiny piece of her felt something she rarely felt. Compassion. She supposed some of her grandfather had rubbed off somewhere on her, and that was probably the part. Loreen knew what it was like to be treated poorly and to be abused by men. In that way, and probably others she didn't care to know about right now, she and Tilly were alike. Swigging down some coffee, Loreen wondered what to do about her new passenger. She was making this up as she went along, so maybe some opportunity would come up to dump the poor gal at a shelter or something. Well, if she couldn't ditch her, at least Tilly could be helpful.
Ever drive a bus?
Loreen asked, ignoring her comment.
No, but I drove lots of tractors on my pa's farm. Then best get some sleep because you have the next shift.
Chapter 6. Fall 1986. Red Boiling Springs. People thought Olivia McLoone was crazy. Perhaps it was her last name that lent credence to that belief, but she herself knew better. She was saner than most folks in these parts. Livy just let others think she was loony. That way she could keep her distance, and they would all let her be. Her brother Sammy was the only one who could put up with her, and Lord knows why he did. He could have married Sally Richards when he was younger. She was the first-grade teacher at the elementary school and pretty, but she would have none of Livy in the house.
Your sister needs help, and we can't have her as part of our marriage. She has to be put away where she'll be taken care of.
With that, Sammy and Sally parted ways. Livy never liked her anyway, with her fancy airs and polished talk. As the years passed, Sammy never married, and he took good care of her, his sister older by 10 years, as he had promised their mama he would do.
Livy, now you know you're not supposed to run outside in the yard in just your slip. It ain't fittin', and you'll catch cold.
He used to say this in his quiet voice, which would calm her down. Lately he had been yelling at her more and more, though, saying he was going to put her away. He was especially put out when she'd use the phone.
Livy, you can't be using the telephone all the time for no good reason, and calling any number you please, and telling 'em to come get you. We got that phone for emergencies.
Her brother would pace as he said this, his voice high-pitched and angry, until she'd put the phone down.
I was just funnin', Sammy.
She'd say, giggling, cupping her hands over her mouth as if ashamed.
No harm done.
She supposed in some ways she was what folks called quar, but it was just her way with things. She had been better since taking the medicine that Sammy said she should take. It made her dizzy in the head, though, and that bothered her. Still, she could focus clearer, like right now, watching Mac Johnson walk across the valley and up the trail to Big Gap Bluff. A cool breeze ran through her loose graying hair as she watched from the rocker on the front porch, wondering what Mac was up to these days. This trip had become regular, once a week on a Thursday evening. He wasn't much of a hunter, so no need for him to be heading into the woods. And the only time he left the house was to work at the lumber mill. That and going to Sunday morning service at the Church of Christ. She had heard from Sammy, who loved to talk to the neighbors, that Mac tried to get Gertrude and his granddaughter Loreen to go to church with him, but they weren't real religious.
Now there's a story,
She snorted, rocking harder. Everyone in these parts knew that Mac's son Nathan got Gertrude in a family way and took off. Nobody knew what happened to him, but there was talk that he had been involved in something shady. Gertrude told folks he had enlisted in that Asian war and died over there. Truth was, more likely he ran off and didn't want to care for the child. He was always shiftless, that Nathan. Got away with a lot because of his good looks, too. Loreen, the poor child. She got the worst of it, with her mother being alone and stubborn to boot. Livy supposed the only good thing Loreen did have was her grandpappy Mac, who now had disappeared into the thick woods and up the hill. Livy was curious. What was Mac doing, going up to the bluff? Some people still moonshined, but not many. No, it had to be something else. A woman? No, Mac was too religious, and he seemed God-fearing enough, but you never knew, given his son. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, the saying goes, so maybe this tree wasn't so good after all. Next time Mac came through, she was going to follow him, she decided, although Sammy would be madder than an old wet hen if he found out. Still, she had to know. She promised herself to do it, rocking and rocking and rocking, until the sun set behind the hills.
Chapter 7. The bus kicked into gear with a lurch, and Loreen lost her balance.
You sure you know how to drive this thing?
She asked, holding on to the top of a nearby seat. Tilly adjusted the rearview mirror and shot Loreen a toothy smile.
Shoot fire. Course I do. Just have to get used to how this gizmo works, that's all. Now you go on and get some sleep. And in the morning, we're gonna have a talk.
Too tired to argue, Loreen wobbled down the long aisle, past the divider and into what she thought was paradise. She'd never seen anything like it. The first room looked like some kind of office, with a large desk. Walnut, she suspected, as she had learned about wood from her grandpa. And on it, a computer and all other kinds of gadgetry. Beyond it was the kitchen, with all the necessary appliances. Then the bathroom. She couldn't resist going there, and besides, she had to pee. She sat on the plush, cushiony seat and jumped off when it started playing a tune. One of Montgomery's hits. Your love keeps me going and going. Cute. The music stopped, and Loreen continued her business, taking in the nearby phone, the stacks of magazines, all girly, and a notepad by the sink that read, Make withdrawal at bank. B.S. Contract. Probably a music thing, Loreen reckoned. The bedroom took her breath away. It shimmered like Las Vegas with that Liberace look. The bed took up most of the width of the bus, covered with a purple satin bedspread with Montgomery's name stitched across it in gold and strewn with velvet throw pillows shaped like guitars. Loreen looked up at the ceiling mirror and grinned. She figured he must see lots of action on this bus, with his groupies and all. A big screen TV hung on a wall across from the bed, and a guitar was propped up on a stand in the corner. Dang, it was pretty. Like red marble with silver streaks running through the body, and frets that looked like pearl. Sitting on the edge of the bed, she picked it up and strummed. She never did learn to play, although she wanted to, hoping Ace Stewart would teach her. He had played in the local bluegrass band and had encouraged her. She figured it was an excuse to get close to her, but it never panned out. Especially after she bit him and then he started dating Rachel Goodlove, the little tart. Loreen stretched out across the bed and groaned. What a crazy day. Breaking free from prison and stealing this bus. She wondered if the police knew yet the bus was missing. If Hezzy kept his mouth shut, they'd never know. That is until Montgomery's people came looking. Heck, Montgomery probably had a whole stable full of buses at his beck and call. What was one lousy little old missing bus? Still, she was missing, and she reckoned the great state of Texas wasn't real thrilled with an escaped con on the loose. If they found out she had stolen the bus to escape, she'd be sent back to the slammer for sure. And she had to get to her mama. She turned on the TV to catch the news, but it was too late. Or too early. One or the other. She wanted to see if anybody had reported the stolen bus, but no luck. Some stupid infomercial droned on about exercise equipment, and as she half listened, her granddaddy's face flitted through her head for no apparent reason. His features showed his hard life, but behind that weather-worn skin was a gentle soul. She struggled with memory. The day he went missing off Big Gap Bluff and what had happened. But all she could recall was how exciting it was to be with Ace Stewart. Her mama had said all along that something wasn't right about her granddaddy, and how he fell off the face of the earth, much less the bluff that most folks suspected he had jumped from. And she had fretted about it. Now her mama was dying, saying her granddaddy's disappearance needed some kind of reckoning, and there was money to be had, something Loreen needed real bad right now. Ever since she had left home at 16, she had been dirt poor, flitting from man to man and place to place, and hadn't done much with her life. Once she left that blink in the road of red boiling springs, she thumbed rides straight to Nashville. It was a wonder to see, with its bright lights, Batman building, and musicians carrying round guitars. First, she had bartended and waitressed in the joints along Printer's Alley. When she got fired for bad behavior, flirting with them cute country singers and not waiting on customers. She started working as a cashier at a Walmart, until she was caught taking money from the till. Needing cash, she started her career as a petty thief, robbing whatever person, place, or thing she could. Not that she was proud of it, but a gal had to survive. Then she ended up in Houston because of old what's-his-name, and added to her list of crimes by stealing that damned hearse. She was finally paroled, and then managed to end up in prison again for sticking up one of them mom-and-pop stores. Not to her liking, but she had no money and was wasting away. Loreen sighed, thinking of the misery she had made of her life. Too late to change now. She wondered what her God-fearing grandpa would have said about her bad deeds had he not gone missing. Her eyes felt heavy, and she let out a long yawn. Next thing she knew, light was dancing on her face, pushing its way around the edges of a curtained window. Loreen pried open both eyes and jolted up, trying to remember where she was, then ran to the front of the bus. Tilly was still in the driver's seat, singing loudly and out of key to some country song on the radio. An orange glow was edging the far-off horizon. What time was it? Loreen's sense of everything felt messed up.
We gotta get off now. Here, let me take over.
Tilly looked at her as if she was out of her head.
But I'm doing good. We just crossed the Arkansas state line.
It's daylight and we gotta get off the road. A place they can't find us.
Tilly glared at her in the rearview mirror.
What are you, some kind of danged vampire that's gotta get out of the light? And who's gonna find us other than my husband?
Loreen ran a hand over her still sleepy face, then looked out ahead at the isolated country blacktop.
Turn off the first side road you see.
Okay, you're the boss,
Tilly said with an indignant sniff. After a few miles, she drove down a graveled road, flanked by thick trees. The bus bumped and groaned, passing an occasional shack or trailer tucked into the woods. They passed a cardboard sign poked into the ground reading, "Tent Revival Meeting with Preacher John Owens. This Sunday only. Come and be saved." Ahead, the shoulder was wider, and Loreen told Tilly to pull over. The bus rumbled to a stop. The only noise was the caw of an occasional crow. Everything else was downright still. It unnerved Loreen, who suddenly felt alone despite Tilly's ever-bubbling presence.
This should do,
Loreen said, finally sitting down. Tilly stood up and turned to her, hands on hips.
All right now. Tell me who you're running away from. I bet it's the law, ain't it?
Loreen nodded, figuring there was no sense in lying at this point. Tilly smirked.
Well, well, well. What a coincidence in this world. We both are running from the law, but for different reasons. So, what did you do?
Like you said before, Tilly, it's a long story.
Tilly stood up and rearranged her bosoms in her top and grinned.
Well, we got plenty of time. Let me make us some coffee, and I want to hear all about it. After all, you're my best and only friend, and I just love girl talk.
With that, Tilly disappeared. Her butt, wedged into skin-tight Daisy Duke shorts, wiggling down the aisle. For the first time, Loreen really wanted to do something terrible to Tilly. But she wouldn't. She wasn't about to add murder to her list of crimes. The sun was climbing fast into the morning sky, and it was getting hot inside the bus. Loreen didn't want to waste what gas they had by running the engine for the AC. She stumbled to the back of the bus where Tilly was pouring 2 mugs of coffee.
What you doing?
Tilly asked.
Looking for folding chairs, a blanket, anything. We have to get outside. Too hot in here. Then we have to make some plans. Here, this'll do.
Loreen grabbed one of the sheets in a nearby closet.
Well, come on then, unless you want to melt into a puddle of sweat in here.
Tilly shot her a nasty look and followed her with the 2 mugs. In a patch of grass in the shade of 2 tall trees, Loreen spread out the sheet and they both settled into its coolness. Tilly sat cross-legged while Loreen spread out flat on her back, arms behind her head, looking up at the cloudless sky. With some prodding, Loreen began to tell Tilly her story, but only the parts she wanted. Some things were better left untold. She did share about Charlie Pistol, about the married jerk from Texas, about ending up in the slammer, even though she didn't say it was for stealing a hearse or robbing a store, and a little about Hezekiah and stealing the bus. On account of taking the bus, she had to tell Tilly about her mama dying in Red Boiling Springs, Tennessee, and how she had to get there before she passed, at which Tilly gave her a somewhat sorry look. Loreen conveniently left out the parts about the money her mama said was coming to her and her granddaddy's disappearance. Some matters were personal. Other than her one attempt at sympathy, Tilly sat there, her eyes wide, sipping coffee and nodding like one of those stupid bobblehead dolls.
I never heard the like of it,
She finally said.
You have had some life. Little ol' me, on the other hand, I ain't never had nothin' but normal as apple pie.
Tilly then proceeded to share more about her life. Married at 18 and now 30, although Loreen doubted that and pegged her for at least 40. One son who drove a truck and a motorcycle, a member of the women's local bowling league, and a part-time manicurist, at which she flashed her fake nails in front of Loreen, emblazoned with the waving red, white, and blue. After all that, Tilly became strangely quiet, and after a few seconds let out a sob, then another and another, each louder than the next.
What am I going to do?
Here I am with you, an escaped prisoner who stole Josh Montgomery's tour bus, and my idiot police husband hunting me down. Lordy, what am I doing to do?
Tilly fumbled in the pocket of her shorts and pulled out a pack of cigarettes. She peered inside the box and let out a wail.
I ain't got but one left. Shit, what am I gonna do? I'll be a mess if I don't get a smoke. A mess!
This is exactly what Loreen feared might happen. She didn't need Tilly's problems or emotional baggage. As she rested there, thinking about her traveling companion, a shadow snagged the corner of her vision. She jolted up and turned to see a man standing at the edge of the woods. He looked to be in his 30s, wore a clean white shirt with bolo tie and neatly pressed pants, and was carrying a small suitcase of some kind. Loreen stood up, afraid. She acted tough most of her life, but the truth was, she walked around shaking in her own skin most of the time.
What do you want? Now you just stay back.
The man didn't say anything and smiled. Tilly was now also standing behind Loreen and whispered,
Maybe we ought to get back on the bus.
Loreen nodded. As she turned to walk, an object whizzed past her head, barely missing Tilly's back. It plopped on the ground with a thud. Loreen looked down and saw a black leather-covered Bible. The man was a few feet closer now, still smiling, and thumping on his suitcase, pointing to the words printed on its side. God's word is eternal. He was making strange motions with his mouth and fingers, trying to get them to understand something. Loreen picked up the Bible and for a second debated about throwing it back at the stranger. Instead, she looked down to where the good book had opened. Romans 12:17. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. It felt like some kind of direct sign from God, as the man still stood there, all 5 feet of him, smiling with his big horse teeth.
Chapter 8. Winter, 1986. Red Boiling Springs. Outside, snow whirled around the corners of the house, making what Mac Johnson called a misery sound. Inside, a fire crackled, thanks to the wood he had chopped yesterday. A lazy warmth filled the room as he sat by the fireplace in his rocker, listening to the Saturday evening Grand Ole Opry on the radio. Minnie Pearl was doing some kind of silly skit that he was only half listening to. Mac was worried. He needed to do something about his situation, and soon. He knew no harm would come to him because if it did, the location of what he had hidden would never be found. But now, his granddaughter's life had been threatened.
You tell me where you done hid what I want, or something may happen to Loreen. Something very bad that you won't like.
Those words on the phone last night still echoed through Mac's heart, as strong and searing as the cold wind outside. He had brought Gertrude and Loreen into his home to keep them safe. For now, they were. The whirring of the sewing machine upstairs meant Gertrude was probably busy stitching up something new. Curtains, a dress for Loreen, a tablecloth. She liked to keep busy, which in Mac's Christian mind was a good thing. After her waitressing job at the dining room of the Donahoe Hotel, she'd often be cooking chicken and cornbread, or washing a load of his work shirts, or working out in the yard, weather permitting, tending the tomatoes, green beans, and cabbage. Loreen was another matter. As she reached her womanhood, she was getting sloppy and lazy. He hated to see that in anyone, especially a girl, and he was going to have to tell Gertrude to start setting his granddaughter on the straight and narrow. She was sprawled out on her stomach in front of the fire, reading one of those trashy drugstore magazines about some rock and roll group whose music was taking the place of the good solid country kind. Even with Loreen's flaws, though, he couldn't let anything happen to her. He had been threatened with notes in the mailbox, then with phone calls.
Tell me where it's at, or you know what'll happen.
Then the threats had come, with a deadline.
Come the spring thaw and the hills passable. You show me where it is, or I'm coming to get Loreen.
Mac glanced out the window. The snow was thick now, gathering into the corners of the panes. Since the weather had turned bad the last couple of months, he hadn't been able to take his weekly trip over to Big Gap Bluff. He didn't want anyone else going there, especially the one who had followed him there a few times. It was troublesome, but he had to sit tight, be patient. The ring of the phone startled him. They didn't get many calls, but when they did, Mac dreaded them. Loreen looked up at him, her face innocent.
Want me to get that, Grandpa?
Mac shook his head. He picked up the receiver and heard the voice he hated.
Told you to stop calling here.
Mac said beneath his breath. Loreen looked up, questioning.
You're not to call here again, I say.
Mac slammed the phone down and found Gertrude in the doorway.
What on earth, Mac?
Wrong number,
he mumbled and went back to his rocker. It seemed to satisfy Gertrude, who went up the stairs. Mac scrunched his thick eyebrows in worry, a sickening feeling coursing through his body as Minnie Pearl cackled through the airwaves. Be strong, he scolded himself. He'd find a way out of this. He had to, for Loreen's sake.
We hope you enjoyed part 2 of AIRT's production of Loreen on the Lam by Marie Elena Zuniga. Loreen on the Lam is available in print and ebook editions on Amazon.com. If you would like more of this kind of story, please let us know in the comments.